When I thought of the future, I never planned that I would have children, and because I just never had a maternal instinct in me that would want to have children. But then when I met Travis, all that changed, and I wanted to have his children because I loved him so much, and it was something he wanted, and I really wanted to have his children. And so we started that journey. We'd been married about a year, and we decided that it was time to start having kids. And we started that process thinking it was going to be real easy, and we didn't know at the time it was going to take us 4.5 years to have a child. And when we started, a lot of our friends weren't quite ready to have kids, and they would say to us, why don't you wait until we're ready? And we battled with that, and we were like, no, we want to start now, so we did. But all our friends ended up having their kids before us. So that was a bit hard. After a while, we decided that we needed to go seek medical advice and find out whether there was something wrong. So we went to the doctor, and we went to a couple of naturopaths as well. And basically, long story short, we found out that our only option was IVF, and that the chance of us getting pregnant naturally was very slim. So we found out that we had a 28% chance of getting pregnant by using IVF, which apparently was very good compared to trying naturally. But if we used IVF, we had a 2-year waiting list, and we would only get the first attempt for free through the government, and then after that it was $11,000. And when we found all this out, it was just really devastating for us. We just never thought that this would happen to us, and we found it hard because so many of our friends it was just naturally would happen, and it just didn't happen for us. I had like a lot of issues with God over it. I was quite angry with God about it because it was something we desperately wanted, and it was a prayer that wasn't being answered. And I would constantly ask God, if you have the power to do something, why can't you do something about it? And I found that I was becoming quite bitter, and I realised that I was becoming a person I didn't like, and I needed to let go of that and move on. One of the things we decided that we needed to do was to spend more time together doing things together that were not anything to do with children. So we took up fishing and gardening is something we hate, but we ended up loving it. And we had this really ugly patch in our backyard under our deck that was an eyesore, and we decided we'd turn it into a fern garden. And we called it our love garden because it envisioned for us what we wanted in our relationship. It had new growth. The ferns represented that. It represented hope for something that we couldn't have, and it represented just the beauty of turning something ugly into something beautiful. In April and May of 2011, there was quite a few sad things happening. There was deaths and there was sadness in the family, and I just remember being overwhelmed with the sadness and just a heavy feeling. And I was sitting at my desk, and I remember putting my hand on my stomach and just praying to God, please let there be a miracle, some hope, some happiness, not necessarily in our lives but in someone's life right now. And little did I know at that time I was 8 weeks pregnant. So pregnancy was not what I expected it to be. I was very sick. I was sick nearly every day with morning sickness right up till I gave birth. It was horrendous. Went into hospital a few times with dehydration. And it was actually a blessing in a way, because I'd had a terrible fear of hospital since I was like a child. And going into hospital and having such great doctors and nurses really helped me believe in them and just feel at peace and happy and believe it was the best place to be. At 29 weeks, at 3 a.m. in the morning, my water broke. So we went into hospital, and I was told that I was going to be sent home. and that they'd just monitor me. But then the next morning I started to develop an infection. So they said that I would be having the baby within the week. They didn't have to wait long. 7 hours later, Kobe was born. Kobe Ronald Cask. He was born at 7:22. He was 3.6 pounds and he was 11 weeks early. He had numerous problems, most of them I can't even pronounce, of things that were wrong with him. He had to be, like when he was born he wasn't breathing, so they had to do CPR on him to get him going. That took 6 minutes. He had trouble breathing and he had to be on a ventilator, like had to be ventilated for 24 hours, and they had to put a tube down his throat so he could breathe. And then after that he had to be on a CPAP machine, which was for his breathing, and that was for 35 days. He had jaundice, just all typical prem stuff, and he had apneas where he would just forget to breathe and they'd have to get him to breathe. It was a very stressful time for us both. We didn't know whether he would live, and we found it hard. But we had awesome church family, and we had awesome friends and family. Our family just rallied around us and really helped in a really difficult time, and sent us so many messages of love and support, and text messages, and would leave gifts for us on our doorstep. So when we came home from being at the hospital all day, really late at night, there'd be something waiting for us on the doorstep, which was just beautiful. And in one of our darkest moments, where we just thought we were going to lose him, a friend sent us a text that really inspired us and helped us to keep going. And in that text, he just said about how that we should focus on each other and leave Kobe to God, and focus on loving each other and caring for each other. That Kobe was in God's hands, and that leave the worrying of Kobe to God. And it was just really magical, because I would read that every day, and that's what kept me going, because I would just be so worried that I was going to lose him, and we would just focus on that, and it really got us through. Kobe was in hospital for 8 weeks, and then he came home after 8 weeks, just before Christmas, just in time for Christmas, which was really special. He wasn't due to be born till January, so that was pretty special. We still had some problems, like with reflux. He had to go back into hospital. He stopped breathing a few times and we had to rush him to hospital, but we got there in the end, and he's doing really well now. He's putting on weight and he's getting bigger, and he's looking really good, and life is so different. Travis and I have really grown through this. We've become closer as a couple, and our love for each other has grown tremendously, and it now has grown even bigger because Kobe has come into our circle of love, which is really, really magical and beautiful how that happens. We feel so overwhelmed by our double miracle that God has given us. I'm constantly reminded every day when I look at Kobe's beautiful smile of the gift that God has given us, and that he does answer those big impossible prayers, that he does have the power to answer them, and he does answer them. When we think about the future, we get excited about all the things we're going to do with Kobe, like going to the beach, going to the zoo, seeing the world through his eyes, and taking him to church. I can't wait to do that. God's timing has really been perfect in our lives.